Peace, Power, and Prosperity, Rob Blackstorm. What I wanted to talk about is how great life is right now. And I know that's a sentiment that a lot of people don't talk about, or a lot of people don't have input on. You know, most of the time people are looking at the problem and not the solution. And, you know, I was thinking today, you know, and reflecting about how grateful I am to be alive, how grateful I am, you know, to have my children, to have my family, how grateful I am to have breath, how grateful I am to have feet, toes, you know, and just really reflecting on the gift of life itself. Now, are there ups and downs? Absolutely. Are there things that throw you off course? Absolutely. But if you are still breathing, that means that you've conquered a lot of that. You destroyed a lot of what's in your way. The weapons formed against you did not prosper. And even if you're going through, again, something like traumatic or something, you know, oppressive right now, keep your head up. You know, in this era, we have technology. You know, think about it. Like, you know, I'm reflecting back, and it's like there's years where there were decades and decades and decades that passed, you know, centuries that passed without these great big advancements in technology. And I'm thinking about from, let's say, the 2000s, right? Late 90s, 2000s, when the Kempata, or the computer, or the Kempata, right? The black molder god energy, right? You're able to mold things and create via the internet using tools like smartphones. You know, there are people recently, most recently, melanated people under severe oppression, you know, all across the world, all across the diaspora, melanated people in severe oppression. And it wasn't always like that. You know, that's not our genesis, but that's what's happened recently in the span of space-time. And they didn't have any antidepressants. You know, there was no Xanax. There was no blockers, you know, so you don't feel stressed about certain things, you know. There was no drug, Adderall, for you to lock in and focus. These are things all that had to be unlocked with time and with effort, right? And as you know, the animal and the human wants to stay as an animal. So what is an animal? Animal's consistent. Animal doesn't change. Animal doesn't grow. You know, animal may get older, but it's still going to bark the same. It's still going to walk the same. You know, animal's not just going to one day just start standing on two legs. You know, animal's not going to one day create, you know, an animal farm. You know, animal's not going to create, you know, a city, you know. Now you may say a beaver, right? But that's a home, you know what I'm saying? And you may say a whole bunch of beavers create a beaver city. All right. You might have me there, right? But I'm talking about a city with banks, and, you know, and power, and, you know, all the things that are entailed with the civics, you know, the civic duties. But we live in a time where we have all of that. We have, you know, computers, smart TV, smartphones, smart, you know, umbrellas, smart everything, you know, desks that stand up, you know, and rise up on their own and settle down. Like, imagine if your ancestors had desks that rose up and down. They could sit down and stand up. at the same time while they were working. In an impressive environment, even with better tools, you could, even if internet, that's why a lot of inventions like the George Washington Carvers and, you know, the adventures of old, old, you know, the cotton gin, the Lewis Latimers, you know, with the light, the Benjamin Banneker's, you know, astrologer, you know, and also Benjamin Banneker was an astrologer and a scientist, and he helped design Washington, D.C. That's why it looks just like Kemet, you know. It looks just like, if you look at Washington, D.C., and you look at the Temple of Karnak and Kemet, they're both the same thing. Spiritual technology creates physical technology. Everything that's created starts in the mind first. So that is the spirit, right? And you get that spark, right, from spirit, and then you start creating, and you bring it to life. You turn a wave into a particle, quantum physics. So everything is created from someone's mind or someone's idea or someone's thought. That's why thought, the idea of a thought, could be a god or a deity called thought, you know, because it itself, the using thoughts, using ideas, is a spiritual science, and the ability to gain wisdom without thinking about it, to be able to channel wisdom and to channel energy, to channel personalities, even different expressions of the soul. It is it's really the highest form of spirituality, right? That's when you become an Asur or an Osiris or Adam Kadmon, you know, in the Kabbalistic parlance, you know, or Kabbalistic theology. Become an Adam Kadmon, a man of light, where you're able to see the yin and the yang, the positive and negative, the particle and wave, you know, and understand both's existence and the ability to utilize both. But with all that being said, you also have to have gratitude, you know? And I think it's important to understand that the time that you're in, there's a lot of benefits, you know, indoor plumbing, you know, like spoons and forks, you know, plates, you know, some people eat, you know, out of very, very severe and savage conditions, you know, to survive. And some people unfortunately, have to be stuck in their root chakra because they're in survival mode. This is why a lot of times people go sit down in prisons, or people go sit down due to sickness or illness or infirmed in some way. You know, people go into 40-day, 40-night, and spirit forces them into that. They might break a leg or an arm, or, you know, or even something more severe that puts them in the hospital, you know, or puts them, you know, has them bedridden, unfortunately. But then they recover, right? And they learn from it. Usually there's some sort of technique. Could be a drug, could be, you know, a technique. Spirituality is definitely going to come into play. So what do they say? You know, you have a lot of problems. You have a lot of problems until you get sick. And once you get sick, you only have one problem. Once you get sick, once you're unwell, once you're diseased, you have a lot of problems. So what brings disease, right? Stress, worry, negative thinking, negative ideation. You are a light bearer, and your light is sourced from darkness. So what does that mean? That means through the darkness of your imagination. The darkness of your imagination is a chalkboard. And on the chalkboard of your life, you're able to draw on that chalkboard. You're able to write on that chalkboard. You're able to create on that chalkboard. But you have to understand and utilize that chalkboard correctly. And what happens is you encounter different schools of thought upon awakening and during your resting hours, because the subconscious is always recording, because you always are one with the universe, even when you're asleep. So you're always recording thoughts and ideas from other people. That's why it's important to, monitor what you're listening to before bed. Or, be careful if you're going to fall asleep to something. Make sure it's funny or make sure it's entertaining. You don't want a lot of drama and gossip in your ear and stupidness while you're sleeping, Or make sure it's spiritual, if you have to fall asleep that way. But it's best bet. Your best bet is to fall asleep in silence. So you could allow the downloads, or really the uploads during that time, to come through while your body is in repair. So understand that the stress bringing cortisol to your body, not only does it lower your lowers your immunity to certain illnesses and diseases, but it also lowers your IQ. Could drop your IQ from 40 to 60 points because of the blood rushing from your brain down to your stomach, going into fight or flight mode, going into protect or deflect mode, going into the animal, going into the devil. This is why a person who's constantly stressed, who's constantly worried, who's constantly fearful, who's constantly not optimistic, you have to be careful, because they'll bring you into that vibration. And that vibration will cause you to attract other people that's on that vibration. So it gives you more to complain about. And it's an endless feedback loop, because you have this vibration of fear, of worry, of anger, of hate, and you're thinking, and you could be thinking you're righteous also with that same energy. You could be doing this for what you call a just cause, right? All the villains think they're doing the right things in the movies, and they all have justifications. So you could think that you're putting energy out that's right and exact, and it's actually not. So your barrier of understanding what to do is to say, would I do it to myself? The universal understanding that we got from African spiritual technology on how to understand universal law is Ma'at. And Ma'at is balance, truth, harmony. But also there's an aspect of justice. And what really is justice? Justice is balancing the scale with equal measure. So balancing the scale with equal measure is equality. And true equality is, would I do this to myself? How would I handle this if this was me? That's true equality. That's why the sun shines on the righteous and the wicked. I remember growing up, man, trying to figure all this out. And it's still a journey. You're still figuring things out. It never ends, but trying to really figure out my place in the world. And then, questioning myself, wondering, should I even be alive, And, feeling suicidal and feeling depressed and, not wanting to talk, not wanting to be around people. and just, going into the bubble cocoon state, and then you start piling on negative thoughts and negative things, and negative visions. And then it leads to, bad diet, laziness, all these type of frequencies. So what I want to give you today is the spirit of gratitude, first and foremost. Also, with that gratitude, I want to give you the ability to use your imagination to find more things to be grateful for in the now, which is the present, which is the future. So in the now, find things to be grateful for. And you keep sending that signal out to the universe no matter what occurs in your life. And eventually you keep knocking on the door of the astral plane, right? You keep knocking on the door of the mental plane of a mentor, right? You keep going to source. And eventually source has to answer. But you got to have consistency. You got to have motion. That energy has to keep spiraling, like the Ouroboros, like the Kundalini. It has to keep spiraling, it has to keep circulating. So that's why ritual is important. That's why the word spiritual has ritual in it. So have a ritual of gratitude, have a ritual of visualization, have a ritual of meditation, have of rituals of connecting to your ancestors. Light candles to them. Be grateful. Be grateful. Life is good. It's not as bad as they say it is. Nor is it as good as they say it is. Right? It's all up to you. You control what you think life is. If you think what you're going through is, and we all have different things that we go through and different degrees of struggle. But it's really all how you see it. If you stay optimistic, that's really the best way. Optimisticism. Knowing that you're connected to source, know that you're connected to God, knowing that you're a divine being. But you have to have that perspective, not only when it's tough, but you have to have that perspective in good times too. And you also have to make sure that you understand what you're actually learning. Like, really don't just know a thing. Like, really understand it. Like, a lot of people are taking snippets from other people's ideas. Like, they're taking the cliff notes from other people's thoughts and ideas, their philosophies, and they're cliff noting it and regurgitating it. So they're doing the knowledge to it, no understanding. And understanding takes experience. It takes wisdom. It takes experience. Wisdom is experience, whether it's someone else's or yours. Like, you read books for knowledge, right? It depends on the type of book, though. If you're reading an autobiography, you're reading a book for wisdom. Not knowledge, not necessarily just knowledge. You want that person's experience, which is their knowledge. So that's wisdom. So understand this. The best thing you could do in this life is be yourself. Know yourself. Understand yourself. Value your uniqueness. Value the light that you shine and the things that's valuable to you. And find spaces that allow that to happen. With the internet, it's a beautiful time to be alive again, even without the internet, right? If you carry that energy, you'll find people that are your tribe that will connect to you. You'll find people that will be upon your path, and those people will be reflections of you. And as reflections of you, they'll also have lessons for you, whether good or bad, right? But start with gratitude. Gratitude is the beginning of the magic. Joy. Joy brings peace. And with that, peace, power, and prosperity. Rob Blackstorm. I love y'all. Like, share, subscribe.